Good morning to you from the Archdiocesan offices in Milwaukee, and welcome to the first video convocation of parish councils. My name is Mark Kemeter, Director of the Office for Planning and Councils, and I will serve as the MC for this morning. We invite you to follow along with the presentations by using the outline which can be found on the website. The purpose of this convocation is twofold. Over the next 25 minutes, we will provide information about key mission initiatives and issues that are being studied and discussed on the archdiocesan level, as well as we will strive to build a greater sense of unity in mission among parishes and the diocese. Our first presenter is Archbishop Jerome Listecki.
Thank you, Mark. I apologize for not having a cartoon because this is Saturday morning, and that was really important for, especially for kids. And us older kids always remember those Saturday morning cartoons. But this is an important time. The use of communication in order to reach out beyond just the confines, say, of the Cousin Center and the representatives which you've dutifully appointed, but to reach out to the various parishes. And the first thing I want to do is kind of tell you this is kind of like a State of the Union, letting everybody know where we are at this given time. And to understand, at least from my part, how important your work in parish councils are and how important it is that you elect these wonderful people as your representatives. They make a difference. It's important to understand. They make a difference in the church and in the Archdiocese. And see, this is live, so you know I'm already being called immediately. So in the truest sense, when we understand the importance of what is being done, we understand the effects it's had in the Archdiocese. Part of the effect of that immediately is the fact that you can see the consequences of it. One of the first things that came out of this Archdiocesan Pastoral Council was the fact that we moved to an evangelization summit. That's important for you to understand. That evangelization summit was the impetus for the Synod. The Synod, which I believe in the last 7 years has been the most significant event that has taken place in the Archdiocese. It has energized us beyond our wildest expectations. So to understand that, do you understand basically the consequences that come about joining and collaborating with our parishes and in making sure that voice is heard here at the Archdiocesan level, and then collaborating with me to put it into effect. And let me tell you that already one of the consequences of that has been evangelization and the Sunday Mass. And through that, when we've last taken basically our census, we are up 1% in attendance. Now, everybody says, how can that be? Or some people say 1% is just 1%. But think of 1% of 600,000. And you can immediately begin to see that the increase is basically significant. And we can now build upon that relationship and build upon that enthusiasm. When I mentioned the Synod, without a doubt you'll hear about the Synod later from Randy Knoll, but recently we just had 1,200 people here at the Cousin Center representing the various parishes, and those 1,200 people represented the life pulse of their parishes, and they were excited, they were enthusiastic. The Cousin Center buzzed with enthusiasm like it hasn't in maybe the last 15 years. People excited to take the ideas back into the parish, to put them into use for the good of our church, for the mission of Jesus Christ. And Randy will tell you about more about moving from maintenance to mission, which was an important theme that was developed at the Synod. One of the priest's comments to me personally was, he said, you know how important that Synod was? I said, no, how important? Every time we get together, even in a renewal situation or an implementation situation, every time we get together, he says, I feel the enthusiasm of that Synod that took place almost now over 2 years ago. So, you see how important your work is and our collaboration is together. One of the important aspects that has happened in our Archdiocese in terms of education is the Seton Initiative. The Seton Initiative will bring together eventually 26 to 27 schools. It will have 8,500 students. It's a new governance model, and you'll hear more about basically the Seton Initiative. But what is it? It's a lifeline to urban education. It's a lifeline to help students who otherwise would be, whose doors would close and schools would close without the Seton Initiative. And it's the job of the church. One of the aspects that we have is to basically to provide that education for our young, and especially to open up basically the doors to those who are seeking Jesus. And in Catholic education, you know, basically it's done for that purpose, to educate academically, you know, excellence, but to introduce individuals basically to Jesus and the gospel. And so we're going to be able to do that in the Seton Initiative while strengthening the rest of our schools. In the urban area, I've asked Father Tim Kitsky to be my Vicar General representing me in urban initiatives. Our concern for our brothers and sisters, especially in the urban area. But that's going to have residual consequences as we take a look at our rural areas and how we can address basically education, which is being threatened in rural areas. How we can collaboratively work in order to give some type of hopeful response to those individuals who find the decreasing family farms that were a part of the urban area, decreasing demographics and numbers, and how do we enliven those areas. So just as we're looking at the urban area, we are not forgetful at all of our more rural areas that also need that same type of attention. People will come to me immediately and say, how can I help? And the first aspect that I turn back is take a look at your parish. See what you can do to collaborate with your pastor. Take a look at the needs of the parish and be there for your brothers and sisters. And I tell you immediately, you'll know the difference. You'll know the problems. You'll know how you can contribute. And always maintain those three priorities that I've asked right away from the very beginning when I came here as Archbishop: Catholic identity, evangelization, and stewardship. Catholic identity, always understanding who we are and not being afraid, especially at this time, to identify ourselves as Catholic and to stand for what the church and the church's teaching is. Evangelization, we've got a task. That is to introduce Jesus to the communities that we serve. How do we do that when you're helping out in your parish? And third, stewardship. How do we do it? Using successfully the resources that have been gathered and contributed for the sake of Jesus and his church. My last imploring you to be active Catholics and don't be afraid. Today is the feast of John Paul II. That was his mantra. That should be ours. Do not be afraid. Jesus stands with you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop. To discuss Synod implementation, here is the director of that office, Randy Knoll.
Thank you, Mark. It's wonderful to be with all of you, some live, some live via video, and then some who are watching this on tape later. As the Archbishop had said, the Synod, the work of the Synod is very much alive and active. And so I just want to give you some quick updates. Following the Synod, a couple of main things happened. One was that the Archdiocese adopted a new mission statement, which is to proclaim Christ, make disciples, and we do that through the sacramental life of the church. And that really has been our focus as we go forward. How is our work proclaiming Christ? How are we reaching out and doing as Jesus commanded us to make disciples? And then how are we connecting it to the sacraments? We started with the whole area of evangelization Sunday Mass, as the Archbishop said, and that was because those were the top priorities coming out of the Synod. One of the first things you probably saw, hopefully did, there was a kit of materials that we sent out, and it had a video on the Mass, the power of the Mass, and a witness from a couple of people. It had some small cards on discipleship, both for adult and for children, and how you live out your faith in your daily life. The next thing that the team focusing on evangelization and Sunday Mass did is produce a booklet called A Vision for the Future. And it really looks at how do we prepare ourselves and our community for the Sunday Mass, how welcoming, how hospitable are we for those who are coming for Mass, and then what do we do to help people continue to grow in their faith. And that led to the leadership gathering that the Archbishop referred to, which was held 3 weeks ago. And we really focused on we have to do more as parishes than just maintain what's going on. And maintaining doesn't mean you're not doing anything. It can be very good work. But what's our focus? What brings us together? What is our mission? And again, going back to proclaiming Christ, making disciples, connecting to the sacraments. How does that set a framework for everything we're doing? And so that was the focus of the leadership gathering. The main talks from the leadership gathering are on the website. If you just go to archmil.org to the Synod page, as well as PowerPoints and handouts from that. Then there's other teams that are also working. There's the social justice team, and the Archbishop made reference to the urban initiative, which is connected to that, as well as other things they're looking at, what's already being done, what are some gaps that we need to fill in. There's a formation team that's looking at the areas of leadership and formation. How do we have well-trained leaders? How do we work with parents and catechists? And how do we just, in general, enhance and improve formation? Then there's a team that's also working on mission and leadership, that all of this comes down to good leadership. And that team recommended that so much of the focus of the Synod priorities was on lay ministry that we initiate a lay ministry office. The Archbishop accepted that recommendation, and we are in the process now of hiring a director for lay ministry. So you'll be hearing much more about that in the future. Then there's also a team, the fifth team is on spirituality of stewardship, or stewardship, but we're focusing specifically on spirituality. And the Archbishop has talked about we need to shine a spotlight on these different areas. So it doesn't mean we're not doing the work of all these areas, but we're kind of focusing on one a little bit more than the other. And what you'll see is we're going to shift a little bit from evangelization and Sunday Mass. We're still going to develop resources in that area, but we're going to focus the spotlight a little bit more on stewardship, and especially spirituality of stewardship. There's going to be regional gatherings in February on the everyday stewardship, how we live out stewardship on an everyday basis. And then about a year from now, November 3rd and 4th, we're going to do a leadership gathering again. And that will focus on the spirituality of stewardship, and we're going to be bringing in national presenters who will talk about that and really make the connection between discipleship and stewardship. If we're true disciples, we live out our stewardship on an everyday basis. So one last thing I want to mention is coming out of the work of the Synod and evangelization is an initiative called 1% Challenge, and it's to commit yourself to 1% of your day, 15 minutes for 30 days to reflect on Scripture. And you can do that together as a parish. You can do it as a pastoral council with other groups. But again, on our website, there's more information about that, and we really encourage you to take advantage of that. So the Synod and the Synod priorities are alive and well, and if there's any way that I can be of assistance, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Randy. We next turn to the moderator of the Archdiocesan Council of Priests, Father Michael Irwin.
I'm a pastor of a collection of 4 parishes in western Dodge County, so it's an honor for me to help lead the Priest Council at this point of time. The Priest Council has 2 basic duties: helping the Archbishop make some of his bigger decisions and give him advice, but we also are there to help effectively implement those decisions. So those are our 2 basic things. And really, when we've been discerning lately, a lot of it has to do with the concept that we're all in this together. Just like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, though different, they're in it together. They're unity. And that's why I liked what all of my predecessors today have said about unity. We do have the Synod on all of our agendas so as to make sure that it can be effectively implemented. So that's key to what we do. Also, we have a social justice standing committee. Last year, they worked on the issue of prison reform to, again, have unity with families and individuals who are in the corrections system, that they will know that we are with them on that journey. This year, their initiative is going to be about the environment. So you will be seeing in the springtime of this year a lot of information of how we can implement Pope Francis's call to pay attention to the environment and what we are to be doing together regarding the environment. Our Priestly Life and Ministry Committee is working on a 360-degree feedback process for clergy. That's one way of developing a leader's capacity, is to be able to get feedback. Now, it's a system that requires humility, but we see over and over again that that's what the disciples are called to do by Jesus, is to have humility. And so that's what they are doing. And we have a whole cohort going through right now in that process. So they're focusing on those efforts. We have an administrative structures committee that helps us to look at some of the structures and bylaws, and they're just doing a bylaw review process right now. And we have an ad hoc group working with the committee for assigning priests in order to get at what is happening right now with all these multi-parish with pastor configurations. And that's one of the burning issues that we know is going on out there, not only among the laity, but also among the leadership, whether ordained or lay leaders, is where is this going? When can it stabilize? And what are we turning into in this process? Because it's key to the effective implementation of all of our other evangelization efforts, is that we have local structures that are effective and sustainable. And that's what we're looking at right now with that committee, is to figure out what exactly we're doing. Now, fortunately, a lot of us have been doing this kind of work for a while. So some of the parishes in more outlying areas, some in the central city and the like, have been doing these consolidation and collaboration efforts for a very long time. When we're in it together, we are going to be able to help, parishes who are struggling or are new to this, to be able to learn some lessons from some of the outlying groups, and to hopefully come to an understanding with the Synod people, to be able to figure out how that leadership can be maybe a little bit less administrative for the priests, more focused on ministry and evangelization issues, and how can we exactly do that? So that's what we're working on right now. Again, our main concept is that we're all in this together, and that's what we're focusing on this year.
Thank you, Father Mike. Here to review last year's work of the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council is the outgoing chair, Jeannie Bitkers.
It's been a real privilege and an honor to be able to serve as the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council Chair for the past year. The Archdiocesan Pastoral Council is really the sister-brother organization and tied to the Priest Council. We too are able and willing and blessed to be able to represent parishes and organizations in the Archdiocese, and to help to advise our Archbishop, who is wonderful at listening to the needs of the people and to the thoughts and ideas that we bring when we come together 4 times a year. Of course, during this past year, we've been greatly influenced by the Synod and the work of the people who have come together at the Synod, as the Archbishop said almost 2 years ago, and the ongoing work of various groups. And so that really permeates and has permeated the work that we do as an Archdiocesan Pastoral Council. In addition, this year, as all of you know, has been the Year of Mercy, called by our Pope Francis, and where he has asked us to, around the world, focus on merciful acts. And so during this year, we have spent some time talking about the things that are happening in our parishes, in our deaneries, and how we can continue to promote this concept of mercy in our church. Specifically this year, we have come together and really worked to move from the district organization that most of us are familiar with to a deanery organization, which more closely matches the organization of our priests at this time. We currently have 10 deaneries that are overseen by various priests in the deaneries, and now we have moved to 10 deanery organizations in the Pastoral Council as well. So some of our districts have come together and are working together at this point. We have brought together people to meet in different deanery configurations, have put together a job description for those people who are serving at the deanery level, most of whom are in this room today. Other things that we've done, we've collaborated with the Knights of Columbus on various projects this year. We don't only represent, when we come together as a pastoral council, we don't only represent individual parishes in deaneries, but we also represent various organizations in the Archdiocese. We've heard a variety of reports regarding senior priests, Hispanic ministries, young adult ministries. Two things that we have talked about and will continue to talk about include the chaplains in our various health institutions and bridging the gap between people of various economic means and social ties in our individual parishes, how we can work together more collaboratively as an archdiocese. You'll hear more about this in the future. And finally, thank you to all of you who are serving as pastoral council leaders in individual parishes, those of you who are serving as Archdiocesan Pastoral Council members, and certainly on behalf of the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council, I want to thank our Archbishop, who, as you know, or perhaps saw, had to leave for another meeting at 10 o'clock, but for his listening ear and for really, as we move into the year of focusing on stewardship, for him sharing his time with us, him sharing his talent and his leadership and his vision with us, and him sharing the treasure, the gospel message, and certainly the wonders of our faith with all of us. So God bless, and I'm now very privileged to introduce to you Randy Richard, who will serve as our Archdiocesan Pastoral Council Chair for the coming year.
Thank you, Jeannie. And thank you for all your service over the last year. Very good leadership. Big shoes to fill. We've we've been listening this morning, have picked up on a common theme. We've heard collaboration. We've heard it. We're all in this together. And absolutely, I need to tell you, I've always been impressed with the amount of energy, the enthusiasm the bishop puts into this APC meeting. There's a responsibility, though, from the parish side. You have the opportunity, responsibility to have representatives from your parish council. Yes, parish councils have a lot on their plate, but please just make it easier on yourself. Get into this collaborative spirit with your archdiocese and have those delegates identified, 2 per parish or cluster. Because without that, you can see how this whole program doesn't work. Collaboration, we're in this together. We need those representatives. A number of years ago, the council drafted some guidelines for parish cemeteries Now that a national cemetery service is managing the archdiocesan cemeteries, we are in the process of working with them on the further development of these guidelines. We look forward to consulting with parishes that have cemeteries, their pastors and cemetery committees, so that guidelines help parishes carry out this ministry as effectively as it can be. Another item, more and more parishes are exploring the use of video technology, as we are experiencing today. In conjunction with the Archdiocesan Worship Commission, we look to begin a study on the existing use and potential for video technology. Most likely at our spring deanery assemblies, we will seek your current practices and your ideas so that we can dialogue with the Archbishop about this question. Next item. It's so good, and the Archbishop made reference to this, it's so good to see the networking taking place among Catholic schools, particularly the Seton Initiative. Networking and the development of Catholic school systems strengthen the academic curriculums and increase enrollments throughout the diocese. The council would like to see the same strengthening and program increases in some of our formation areas. Over the next year, we plan to take a look at elementary religious education programs, youth ministry, and RCIA. We want to look at these areas of ministry and explore ways to strengthen how we form children, adolescents, and adults, as well as how we grow these programs. We fully recognize that this is a longer-term project. We also realize that your help, back to this collaboration, and your support will be invited as this study progresses. Just to let you know, we have not forgotten about the study we completed last year about engaging seniors in high school who have been confirmed or young adults who have chosen not to attend a college or university. These Catholics will also be considered in our study. Last, those of us who have served on the Archdiocesan Council for some time recall past meetings in what are now the deaneries and remember hearing councils report on parking lots that they were repaving, electronic signs that they were installing, that now the work is of financial councils. These days, it is so refreshing to hear councils at deanery meetings talking about new ministries. Councils are focusing more and more on mission. It is our role to help our parishes become vibrant signs of the presence of Christ. Keep up the good work. We are the church. Mark.
Thank you, Randy. You can see the Archdiocesan Pastoral Council will be in very good hands for the next year. Just a reminder to all of you that there are questions at the end of the outline that is available on the website. These can be used for personal reflection or for group discussion. We look forward to hearing your feedback on the Convocation as part of our spring deanery assemblies or those deaneries that will meet between now and the end of November. We probably will hear some feedback as well. Thank you for joining us, and may God bless each one of you as well as your council efforts to carry out the mission of Christ and His church. Good day.